As all of you can see, the first question of the poll was the average Indian citizen generates 450 grams of waste per day. Turns out 56% of you were aware of the fact and 44% of you were not aware of the fact. And then about waste separation, 58% of you only separate your waste into two parts, that is just wet and dry, and 14% you do not separate your waste at all. 28% you separate your waste in three different sections, that is wet, dry, biomedical. Then composting at home. So 44% of you said yes, that you compost at home, and that is really good to see. 47% because you do not know how to do it, and don't worry about it, because today in this webinar you will be told about how to compost as well. And apart from that, you can also check out our other webinars, which is available on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel as well, about the correct method of composting. And there is a whopping 94% of people who want to live a zero waste lifestyle. This is really motivating to see. So thank you very much about it. And and it turns out 47% of you have not heard about resource recovery or circular economy. So this is definitely going to be helpful for each one of you. So good morning, everybody. And thank you for joining us on a Saturday morning and coming here and, sitting here for getting to know how to best go about your waste management system. So this webinar has been hosted by Adda in association with Sahas Zero Waste. I'll introduce a little bit about both the companies. So Adda is the pioneer of apartment management software, and in the 11 years of our journey, we have evolved to become the Apartment Super App. This product takes care of all the needs of apartment residents, from maintenance payment to gate security, as well as at-home essential services. And presently, we are servicing 80 plus cities across India as well as abroad. Sahas Zero Waste too is a pioneer in the socio-environmental segment, and they have been around for 17 years. They are a pioneer in this niche, and they are spread across from South and West India like Chennai, Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Bombay, and they manage a whopping amount of 77 tons of waste per day. They are also government empaneled vendors for Bengaluru, Chennai, and Noida. Now, Sahas has a target of managing 122 tons of waste per day by 2021, and they're definitely going towards that goal very aggressively. So, all the best to Sahas for that. Today, our esteemed speakers are Ms. Wilma Rodriguez. She is the CEO and the founder of Sahas, and Ms. Shobha Raghavan, the COO of Sahas. So, Ms. Wilma is a former journalist who has been passionate about sustainable waste management from the early 90s, and she has been one of the light bearers in the Indian society for sustainable living. Ms. Raghavan has been associated with Sahas for 7 years, and she actively counsels individuals to become champions of sustainability in her network. She has also spoken in many prestigious forums organized by IIM Bengaluru, the European Union, Intellecab, Government of Karnataka, Indian Institute of Packaging, Greenbuild India, among others. So I now pass on the mic to Ms. Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez, please do take over.
Thank you, Kanika, and thank you, Apartment Adda, for having us at this forum on a Saturday morning. This today should no longer be a buzzword. It should be part of our living on a day-to-day basis. And for us, this is something at Sahas Zero Waste that we have been enabling over the last now many years. We started Sahas as a not-for-profit in 2001, but then moved it to a private limited, a social enterprise with a business model, and that's who we are today. Both Shobha and myself will be speaking to you as part of the leadership team of Sahas Zero Waste. And we work primarily in South India, Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Goa, but definitely we are also looking to be in other cities, and that really depends on whether other cities wants us, whether other cities are aligned with the kind of environment and social impact that we can bring to all our team. And
Miss Rodriguez, you're not audible.
okay.
Miss Rodriguez, you're not audible right now. So can you just
Let's just take it out. Yeah, can you hear me now?
yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, great. Yeah. So, yeah, let me just move on. And, we were talking about the organization having moved from an NGO, which we started in 2001, to a private limited in 2013. And when I say private limited, we focus our work is in accordance with business models, and we are a social enterprise that focuses on social and environment impact. In this next 40 minutes, both Shobha and I will take you through what we mean by a circular economy, and basically how the Indian regulations, both Indian and international regulations, actually have all the regulations support the principles of a circular economy, zero waste living, and holistic waste management. So we'll briefly look at the regulations, and then finally looking at how we, as an organization that is committed to social and environmental impact, work with our customers to enable them to become zero waste entities and zero waste systems. So let me move to the next slide, which is a circular economy and what do we mean by a circular economy. So today when
Miss Rodriguez, we have lost your voice again. Miss Rodriguez, perhaps keep your camera off, then it will be easier for you to do the presentation.
Yeah, can you hear me better now?
Yes, much better.
Okay, yeah. So when we're talking of a circular economy and how do we live a circular economy? In the context of waste, Shobha, can we go to the previous slide? In the context of waste management, look at wet waste, and we look at all the wet waste which is organic in nature, 100% through composting and bio generating.
Miss Rodriguez, we cannot hear you again. We have lost your audio.
Okay.
Ms. Rodriguez, will it help if Ms. Raghavan does it now, and then we can move on to you?
Shobha?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. So we're explaining the concept of circular economy, where waste generated at source is segregated, then the wet waste goes into a composting or a gassing system. The segregated waste then goes for secondary sorting, where the inorganic waste, which are the different fractions of dry waste, are sorted into different categories, as much as 25 to 30 categories. And then each of these are then sent to recyclers who have put in systems to recycle specific grades of waste. Which, so there are recyclers who recycle paper, those who recycle plastic, metal, glass, etc. So what happens is, when they take it for recycling, they bring back the material. So a paper recycler would bring back paper into the industry, which again goes back to the product industry, which uses paper as its raw material. It may be a second grade paper, but it can still find certain uses, and those recycled paper, plastic, metal is used to make certain products, which we call as recycled products, and that again comes into the consumption chain. So this is what we talk about circular economy, where from so waste generated at source comes back to source through a value added chain. This is how this consumer's life cycle of products behaves. Moving on to the next slide. Yeah, these are some statistics of what kind of waste we are generating, and how rapidly we are polluting the environment. So if you see that roughly 50% of our waste is coming from wet waste, because it has got moisture in it. So 50% of the waste that any kind of institution or campus is generating is comprising the organic waste, which is so very easily recovered as a resource, either through composting or biogas. And a good 20% is the inorganic waste, which is the man-made products made of different plastic, paper, different streams of inorganic material, and which in turn comprises 68.8 million tons of waste per annum. And this is the kind of whooping problem that is facing us right now, and we are trying to see how this 68.8 million waste generated per annum in our country can be recovered as a resource rather than getting into a landfill. And if you see that the projection right now is showing that by the next 25 years, this is going to increase by another 133%, which is million tons of waste. So it's high time that there is a good amount of focus on the way we manage waste in a systematic way. Now there are this slide is really telling us about what kind of budgets are right now available for being used right now for managing waste / disposing waste. You see that 50% of the budgets are going towards transporting the waste, 28% collection, and 22% on manpower and such requirements. But 50% of our budgets are going and moving the waste from source to a destination that is 70 to 80 kilometers distance. And that is such a big atrocious waste of money, because when waste can be managed at source, definitely we can see, first is we will be able to reduce transport costs. Secondly, we'll be able to reduce the pollution that the waste movement creates, especially the organic waste, which generates a lot of leachate, plus of course the carbon dioxide emissions of the lorries that are carrying the waste and transporting to far off places. And typically most of these large plants of the municipalities are located at a radius of at least 80 to 100 kilometers.
Ms. Raghavan,
that is just giving a perspective of the...
Ms. Raghavan, just interrupting you for 1 second. Can you please just switch off your video? Then your audio will be, it will be easier to stream the audio. Okay. Yes.
Is the audio clear?
Yeah. It's clear now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So right now we've just given a perspective of circular economy. We have tried to explain what is the how enormous the problem is, and what kind of budgets are being spent by different state governments towards waste disposal, whereas the focus is now to be on waste management. So here is a set of regulatory and policy framework that is offered by at different levels, and it is important that all of us understand what are the regulations around waste and what are our roles and responsibilities for as per this framework. So if you see at the national level, we have the Environment Protection Act. Then we have the solid waste rules. I think this is the 2016 solid waste management rules must be ringing in all your ears. It's quite I mean, it's been talked about at different forums, and it's become the highlight of the country's waste management problems and solutions. And then are the plastic waste management rules, that again of 2016, which has gathered a lot of traction because of the amount of plastic waste that we are generating, and the kind of the problem we're having with plastic with respect to its collection and recyclability. Then comes the national level policies, where there are guidelines for segregation of waste, collection of waste, and disposal of plastic waste. It's very well laid out laid out guidelines for making a producer responsibility plan. So basically, a producer responsibility plan is nothing but the compliance of a producer of plastic. So the different producers of plastic and manufacturers of plastic, who are typically the FMCG companies, who are creating lot of packaging material to put their products into the market. So they have they have they have to ensure that the plastic that they put into the market is retrieved back through a proper collection system and channelized for recycling. Coming to the third point, where you're talking about guidelines for disposal of non-recyclable fraction. So it is also understood that there is a lot of material that cannot be recovered and recycled. So what is the solution for such material? Such material, there is a provision that it can be taken to a cement kiln for co-processing. And typical examples of this kind of waste are chips and chocolate wrappers, which are coming under the category of multi-layered plastic, where different types of plastic are fused to ensure that the food product inside remains fresh and has a shelf life of 6 months, and etc. So that is that particular stream of waste, multi-layered plastic, is humongous in quantity. They are very light in weight, but humongous in quantity. And government has given us a solution that it can go to a cement kiln to recover energy. Other streams of waste in this category of non-recoverable recycler are maybe footwear and rag clothes and such things, which because of hygiene reason cannot be taken up for recovery or recycling. Then comes the guidelines for co-processing. So at the cement kiln, where the co-processing unit has to be set, there are guidelines that are laid out for them so that they don't create pollution in trying to recover energy out of the waste that they are handling. Guidelines for disposal of thermoset plastic waste, including SMC and FRP, are again different streams of plastic for which guidelines have been laid out. Guidelines for SANI waste, which is also a very big problem, and this is a lot of it is coming from which is also classified as domestic hazardous waste, and also not given too much attention as of now from EPR perspective. Similarly, disposal of legacy waste, the historic waste that are there in landfills. How do we handle such waste which has already kind of polluted the environment? Is there a way we can recover something out of that waste? Is there a way we can recover the land back and replenish it for further use. And finally, guidelines for provision of a buffer zone, which indicates that there is a zone, there are some limits that are provided for boundary limits that are provided for residential units, which protects the residences from countering any issues because of pollution or smell that is arising off the very large waste management units. And typically we see these problems in very popular cities like Bangalore and Gurgaon and such things, but there are definite guidelines for the governments to work on. Vilma, are you available? Is everything okay on your side? Would you like to take on the next two?
Yeah, let's go to the next slide. I think I'm audible now.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next slide, please. So in all of these, so what I wanted to kind of focus on is not so much the regulations. We have regulations which are very progressive, the best in the world, but we are not enforcing these regulations, and that is where the tragedy is. Now, there is also, we need not be overwhelmed with the problem. I mean, in the first 2 or 3 slides, we looked at the magnitude of the problem, and really we need not be bogged down or overwhelmed with these problems, because there's a lot of things that we as individuals and as smaller communities can do. So as an organization, we have always focused on decentralized waste management systems, and we bring decentralized down to the apartment, where today apartments, corporate, educational institutions, schools, etc., as per regulations, as per rules, are actually identified as what we call bulk waste generators. Anyone who generates more than 100 kgs of waste per day is a bulk waste generator. And so, because of the lack of capacities of our municipal corporations, we now have it in our own control to take control of the waste that is generated in the apartment and manage the waste ourselves. So that is the duty now and the responsibility of an apartment or even a corporate campus. And there is, in this process of becoming completely responsible for your waste, there are 2 or 3 guidelines around it which are put into the regulations. Segregation of waste at source is mandatory, and I was happy to see in the poll, that so many of you are segregated. And when you have segregated waste, we have systems where today if you segregate, tomorrow somebody comes and just picks it up and again it gets mixed. It's in our control to see that even segregated waste can be managed inside an apartment. So therefore you introduce composting for all your wet waste. There's also biogas, which is there as an optional technology, which is now available. But 100%, like we make space for our cars and make space for our swimming pools and everything else, we definitely can make space for composting the waste that we generate. Even your garden litter. I mean, garden litter is such a good resource which we can put back to soil. We don't need to burn it. We don't need to throw it away. In an apartment and as a bulk generator, you are expected now to make sure that it's not only about putting in place infrastructure, because today builders, before they get pollution control board sanctions, they have to show infrastructure for waste management. But this infrastructure must be live after residents move into the apartment. So therefore you need to factor in your monthly billing and outgoings. What is the kind of operational costs that are involved in the managing of this infrastructure? So if you have an OWC and if you're generating 250 kgs of wet waste per day, do you have sufficient kind of manpower available and put in place for managing that OWC or that composting system? And then you have all the dry waste, which is paper, plastic, metal, glass. That today in most of our cities, and for sure in Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, we have enough of abilities to track all the dry waste till it goes to a proper end destination, including a cement kiln for non-recyclable waste. So today there is no reasons for us to say, I'm segregating, but somebody else is mixing. If you work with the right empaneled vendors who have the right alignment on environment and social needs, then you will be able to track your waste and be a completely responsible and zero waste community. So I just wanted to put out there that in the way we work, really, you need to look at not just the revenues from the waste that you get from dry waste, but also how does it reach the final end destination. And I think we will come in the next few slides as to why a service fee is important. And a service fee is also prescribed today as per the regulations, where people don't just look at the revenues from the waste, but the complete operations, which needs therefore a service fee. Shobha, can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so when you're segregating waste, and I think all of us know, we're looking at wet, we're looking at dry, and we're looking at domestic hazardous waste. Today it's very important because in this domestic hazardous waste, there's also PPEs, you know, from sanitary waste and also from COVID related kind of masks, etc., that we may be wearing. So it's important for us to segregate this waste. And again, in places like Bangalore, you do have medical waste facilities that accept this waste. And we as organizations have put that in place so that even this waste goes to a right destination for landfilling or energy recovery. I won't spend too much of time because this is a basic right now. We go to the next slide. So again, when you're looking at wet waste management today, there is enough of tech available for composting and biogas management of all the dry waste. Composting, I would really like to put attention to the 20 composters which are really not composting systems at all. They may be less space, they may take away, they may have requirements, but if we are composting, let's be, you know, mindful of the fact that your end product must go back to Mother Earth and must enrich our soils, and that is something that our 24-hour composters cannot do. So, you know, there are other systems which can manage our wet waste appropriately, and there are biogas systems for larger quantities of waste that you may generate. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, and I think, Shobha, you can take over here. You want to take this on, the processing of the non-biodegradable waste, which is paper, plastic, metal, glass.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Shobha.
Am I audible?
Go ahead.
Okay, so while wet waste, we definitely believe that while we definitely believe that the organic waste has to be managed on site, and we've given enough reasons why it should be managed on site. The inorganic waste, the paper, plastics, quite voluminous and you may not find enough space within the apartment complexes to be managed on site. However, we could do just some high level solution. And what you see here, we are saying that the
Okay, Shobha, your voice is, I'll take this, Shobha. I'll
Can you hear me?
because your voice, Shobha, your voice is breaking. I will take this. Shobha, your voice is breaking. I will take it. So, you know, we are
Go ahead.
Yeah, Shobha, I'll take this. So you're looking at end destinations for paper, plastic, metal, glass, and in an apartment, and we speak because we're talking mostly to apartment complexes. In an apartment situation, you have a small space within your apartment for decontaminating the waste at a very basic level. So you'll have a primary segregation of waste that takes place to clean up any organic fractions that may be there in the waste. And then finally, you take this waste to a material recovery facility or a dry waste collection center, where this waste then gets sorted into 17 to 18 different categories. Because if you're looking at paper, you have 3 or different categories of paper which go to different paper mills for recycling. For plastic, it's about 10 different types of plastic, and each plastic has to go to a different recycling unit. So this is an intensive exercise that needs to happen, and you have to have appropriate space, and you have to have appropriate expertise and manpower to be able to manage the system. So today the material recovery facilities in many of our cities is becoming that space where the secondary sorting can take place, and that also provides jobs to people at the base of the pyramid. And this is what has been there. Can you hear me? No? I'll have to just log in.
Miss Rodriguez, we can hear you.
Okay, fine. So then can we go to the next? Sorry about this connectivity issues. This is really, really sad. Yeah. Can we go to the next slide,
Miss Rodriguez, I think you will have to do the screen sharing. Miss Raghavan's screen
We've lost
sharing.
Shobha, is it?
Yes, yes, yes.
1 second. Huh? Yeah, can you see my screen and hear me?
Yes, we can. We can.
Oh, that's great. That's great. It's not going on. We'll have to show this screen. Yeah. Okay, you can see it, right?
Yes, we can see it. We can see it. Just make it full screen. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Perfect.
Okay. Yeah. So I was the destinations in terms of a material recovery facility, and we had a little video to show you. Since it's difficult and we're having challenges on, I would request you to perhaps see the video on our website, Saahas Zero Waste website. But we are running material recovery facilities which are about 10 tons of waste per day, and this is all kinds of paper, plastic, metal, glass being managed in these facilities. And these kind of facilities are now there also in Chennai, upcoming in Hyderabad and in other cities as well. There is now this fraction of waste which is called non-recyclable dry waste. Basically, it's a lot of plastic waste, which is your multi-layered laminates, your chips packets, etc. This grade of waste currently is very difficult to recycle, and so in an interim situations, as brands kind of work towards recycling of this material, we have found the end destination to be the cement kiln, which is where this waste goes. I think Shobha mentioned it earlier. Cement kilns are there in all our cities. So if it is properly baled and transported to the cement kiln, the destination, the cement kiln actually recovers energy, and this waste is used as an alternate fuel. So again, even up to that point, we can really manage our dry waste. But it is an intensive exercise, and that's why perhaps we don't have the proper processes and systems in place. This waste is currently not being recovered. I will come to our Saahas Zero Waste and what we do. And as I mentioned earlier, I hope you kind of were able to hear at that time, our focus is on decentralized waste management systems. Because it is through decentralized systems that we can recover up to 95% of all the waste that we generate. And this picture that you see here is, of our material recovery facility. And you can see that when waste is segregated with this kind of intensity, then it's not waste, it is a resource, because each of these waste streams now have an end destination. Yeah. So our business model and our solutions are around managing waste in a campus like an apartment or a corporate campus. And that's our zero waste program, where we start with segregation. We work intensively with all the waste generators, make sure segregation takes place, you know, and all that I described. You have an end destination for your composting and your biogas, and that's our zero waste program. Then we also brands in an extended producer responsibility vertical, where brands then partner with us to fulfill their own roles, and we channel that waste back into recycling or to the cement kilns after it has gone through our material recovery facility, or we work with the informal sector. And then finally, our third vertical is the recycled products, where we bring back waste, and that's how we close the loop, and that's how we demonstrate circular economy and zero waste living. I'll go to the next slide, and that is, you know,
Vilma, I can take it on now.
Okay, go ahead, Shobha.
Yeah. Okay.
Question time for questions also. So just let's be brief.
Yeah. So basically, a zero waste program, which means that zero waste a campus can become a zero waste campus, is because we have solutions where we can handle all waste generated by the residential societies. We have tied up with, there are enough number of authorized destinations to take this waste for proper recycling. There is traceability and tracking of waste from source to destination, and we can customize solutions based on the amount of space available, budgets available, to provide the right infrastructure solutions to the apartments. And by this way, each apartment can complete their legal compliances as per the country's law. Can we move on?
Yeah, go ahead.
We'll share this video later. Can you move on to the next slide?
Yeah, this is important.
Yeah, so this is an interesting graphic that we wanted to share with you on the economics. I think it's a common practice for residential societies to hand over their waste to the informal sector and get some revenue out of it. So as per the whole the regulations, it is important that we bring the informal sector into a formal chain. It is important that they also work within a formal framework. Now, we've just done enough of study on this, and we realized what we are trying to show you here is that 95 to 100% of the waste can be recovered. And if you see the pie chart, you will see that more than only about 2% of the waste that is generated is having high value. When we say high value, the cost involved, the formal cost involved in treating such waste, and the revenue that we get from the waste is a viable option. Whereas more than 98% of the waste is in the grade medium, low, and negative, which means the cost incurred to manage such waste, formal cost involved to manage such waste, is much higher than the revenues that such streams of material generate. And therefore, this gap can only be met by a service fee from the generator of waste. So this is a interesting demo that we wanted to show to you, so that there is a notion that that waste is generating money and we need to make revenue out of it and also put it in your balance sheet end of the year. But that is not the right practice, because you're promoting informal practices, whereas it's high time all of us support the formal system of waste management. Can we move on?
Shobha will be very brief. I've already explained this. So this is IMB, and basically we work with a lot of customers, and IMB is one of our customers. We've been working with them for the last 10 years. Shobha, I'll move on. This is our zero waste customers across cities and different formats, etc. We work a lot with the corporate campuses, but we have also work with apartment complexes, and we're happy to be working with more apartment campuses. So all of this work really, looks at our impact both on environment as well as social impact. So, when we divert waste from a landfill, or when we recycle waste, look at the kind of impact that we have on the environment, and that is captured through the Sustainable Development Goals. You may be knowing that today we have the Sustainable Development Goals put out by the United Nations, and by 2030, these goals are supposed to be something that is visible to the world. So in looking at impact, we are helping SDG number 11 bring about more sustainable cities, responsible consumption, and climate action as well. And finally, when you look at the number of people that we employ, today we are managing, and those numbers have to be changed a bit, but today currently, before COVID, we were managing about 77 tons of waste per day, employing 250 people. These are our own team. This is people who are from the base of the pyramid, and we ensure that they get minimum wages. So today I would expect that each of you in this forum here, when you go back and check on your existing waste management system, who is collecting your waste? Is that person getting minimum wages? Does he have a health insurance? Does he have ESI? These are questions that we are now bound as the middle class of India, as people who believe that we have to be responsible. These are questions that we have to ask ourselves and ask our management committees, so that we can bring about those changes that we need to happen. Because as I said, we at Saahas Zero Waste are constantly tracking the impact even at the social level. So when we employ 250 people, the kind of impact that is happening on low poverty, which is SDG 1, gender equality, about 60% of our field staff are women, and then finally the fact that we are able to give decent work and economic growth. Yeah, I think with that we finish our presentation, and I'd like to apologize for the glitches that we have had with connectivity, but I think we are very much available in Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, and please do reach out to us so that we can take some of your questions now, maybe for the next 15 minutes, later on, please do reach out to us and we can engage even beyond this forum. So with that, can we look at some of the questions?
Yes. So the first question, I think Ms. Geeta Ramakrishnan has a question. She has had her hand raised for quite some time. So Ms. Geeta, I will allow you to just, kind of present your questions. I'll just allow you to talk here. Okay. So yes, Ms. Geeta, you can talk now. So basically, if you have a question, you can ask away. Ms. Geeta, are you available?
There are some questions in the chat box.
So I think we'll get back to her a little later.
Yeah.
So here we have a question from Salarpuria Silverwoods. The question is, what is the ideal solution for a 125 flat apartment complex where we have challenges in finding open or covered free area for all the processes and equipment?
Yeah, so the best solution is to look at on-site composting and to look at the dry waste being collected by an empaneled vendor, but make sure that that empaneled vendor has formal processes, as I have mentioned, and make sure that dry waste goes to a material recovery facility. So you'll have your wet waste, dry waste taken care. Sanitary waste is also, is picked up and goes to a medical waste facility, and that service is also provided by empaneled vendors like us. So totally, even if you have C&D waste, which is, waste, ceramics, etc., from bathrooms or from any kind of debris that you may generate, there is in places like Bangalore, Hyderabad, in South India, we have destinations for the C&D waste as well. So all of this is available for apartments, and we would be happy to kind of take people through the solutions that are available. But please make sure that the system goes beyond just segregation of waste at source, and the system is formal.
Okay, so we have another question about composting inside the apartment units, as in individual residential units. I think this is a question that a lot of people will be eager to, because we saw that there was a high percentage of people who want to compost, but they do not know the exact procedure to do that. So, if one of you could just give, an overview of how to compost within the apartment, within the flat of an individual.
Okay, so Shobha, you want to take that?
Yeah, I can take that. So for apartments who want to do it individually, they can definitely look at Daily Dump and other smaller size composting units that are available, and it is quite easy and not so cumbersome. It just needs good ventilation and sunlight. That is at a home level, and there are a lot of DIY packages that are available which train on how it can be done. But at an apartment level, again, my only suggestion is that please do not go for systems in the basement, because finally it is a natural process, composting, and it requires ventilation, good air and sunlight. Then only then you'll not have operational issues like smell and maggots and leachate and such things that can cause problem, which forces the apartments to stop going for apartment level composting. Please look for an open space. It is definitely mandatory, and you should fight with your builder to get such a space.
All right. So there's another question. I think this is a question that can be combined with a couple more questions. So this question has come from Pune, and the question is: the wet waste is segregated at the society level, and they have an OWC to process it. But for the dry waste, they are not exactly aware of the companies who collect it, and they are not exactly sure how to process the dry waste of packaged plastic, and their society is outside municipal limits. So, what can such a society do in such a case?
Yeah, I can take this question. So basically, I know the system in Pune, and so you do have the waste picker cooperative. Swatch is there, and there are some of the other informal groups that work in Pune. So at this point of time, we would not be able to vouch for all the dry waste in Pune, including the waste which is multi-layered and going to cement kilns. But that system currently needs to be developed in Pune. It is there to some extent. But if you identify the right vendor and ask him the right questions, exactly like what we're doing things in Bangalore, in Hyderabad, and Chennai can also take place in Pune. So I would suggest for Pune, make sure that you pay a service fee so that even the low grade waste can go to a cement kiln. So today, waste picker groups are afraid to ask apartments for service fees. And if you don't pay a service fee, then you are not going to be taking care of the low grade waste. Please do go through our apartment report that we put out on our website to understand why today waste picker groups are not able to afford to take waste to the right destination. Waste which does not have economic value will be dumped in our water bodies, will be burnt, because we believe that we don't want to pay people, and these amounts of monies are really very affordable, very small, and they will bring us to the right destination for our waste.
Okay, so there's another question regarding on-site composting in society. So for on-site composting, guys, you can actually visit sites like Daily Dump, who provide on-site composting solutions. But we'll go on to another question. The question is from Miss Christie, and she's asking that how can the biogas generated be used? They are a society of 80 apartments only.
Yeah,
I can take this.
Shobha, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so for an apartment to use the biogas, they'll have to connect it to a common kitchen. So if they have a clubhouse and where there's some minimal amount of cooking, even if it's tea, coffee, and simple snacks that are being prepared over there, it could be connected to such a place, or it could also be connected to a small area where like a pantry where the housekeeping staff and securities basic beverages are can be made from the gas that is generated. You don't have to make it into a cylinder. It is a direct piping and can be connected to a stove and a burner and directly be consumed. It can be in fact consumed on a daily basis.
Okay. So there's a clarification by Mr. Kannan. So here is his statement. Economics of dry waste. You mentioned 98% is value negative and also mentioned formal in the same breath. In a lot of situations, the informal has better efficiencies and abilities, while formal systems are important for bringing some amount of hygiene. So can one of you just give a clarification to this?
Yeah, sure. I'll take that question.
Yeah.
So we have to decide what we are saying inefficient. If we don't pay minimum wages to informal sector, is that how we define inefficient? Or do we want the informal sector to also be, part of the system and, have the kind of benefit of proper whether it's minimum wages and other statutory requirements, in terms as per the labor laws. So the only reason why the informal sector today seems to, be attractive in some sense as a service provider is because they actually give back some revenue to the waste, to the partner or to the customer whom they work with. But when we work paying minimum wages and we have a system which is a material recovery facility where people, we pay rent and we have proper machinery and we have a conveyor system, and as a system we are able to recover. I mean, each person has an efficiency of about 150 to 200 kgs sorting that takes place per day. I mean, one needs to understand and why we have a perception that the formal system is not efficient. And I would like to have this discussion maybe in a more detailed manner. And I again would refer to our report which is out there, explaining the difference between formal, informal, explaining the reasons why we are saying, waste, dry waste cannot just be collected at no cost or a payback system. If you can read that and come back to us with questions, we can have a nice discussion, to explain how the formal system is definitely more efficient and more transparent and more accountable, and that's the system that we all need.
Okay, so we will take the next question. So this is a question from Navi Mumbai. So they are saying that housing society usually do not have enough funds. Is there any organization who can offer sponsorship in Mumbai and Navi Mumbai area?
Yeah, I can take that. I mean, I don't understand, basically we all pay for all kinds of services. Yeah, so waste management, it's like paying for cleaning of your common areas. It's like paying for your electricity and your water and your utilities. So that is the kind of budgets that we now need to put for waste management itself. So, and I think we have to get out of a mindset of being that waste should, there's a charity element to it. And this charity element must move out of our mindsets, because waste is like any other service. And if we manage it properly, it will stop becoming the monster that we see all around us. Yeah. So the bulk generators today generate about 40% of a city's waste. So whether it's Navi Mumbai or whether it's Bangalore or Chennai, 40% of your waste is coming from apartments and corporate campuses. And if that waste can be managed on its own without the municipal corporation, then that is the first step that we can take towards holistic waste management services.
Okay, this is another interesting question that do you have documentation about burning of plastic packaging materials in cement kiln? There is one nearby their society, and it would help if a formal documentation is available. Okay, so can you put a little bit of light on that?
Yeah, so sure. So there is the cement kilns have very very elaborate infrastructure and processes to take this waste, and there are also good emission control systems in place. The waste is burnt at a very high temperature, there is complete combustion. So all of these checks and balances have been put in place, and that's why the cement kiln is a formal authorized end destination for non-recyclable plastic waste. So there are reports available, and if somebody writes into us, we can share some of those reports. We can also share it in this forum if you want.
Okay. This is a question that has come up in all the waste management webinars that we have hosted. What are the ways to encourage segregation by household? This has indeed been a pressing issue for a lot of apartment communities about how to get their residents to actually segregate.
Can I take this question?
I will take it because that's the simplest thing actually to do. Yeah.
Yeah, so we see it's about constant awareness and engagement with the residents, and we have found that a very successful way of bringing this, bringing the people to commit to this is through children. If children can vouch for segregation at source and understand the implications if we do not segregate waste at source, what kind of a planet are we going to leave for them? I think that such engagements have really knocked the head of the adults, and they will they have really shown better results. It is no big rocket science. We have been telling everyone, all the forums are telling the same thing. It's just food, inorganic and SANI waste. That's all, and I think we can do it. There is no reason why we should hear that they cannot do it at all. Please use children. They are the champions of the cause. They can deliver the knowledge in a more emotional way than adults or any kind of forums like this can deliver.
Okay. Now, there's another interesting question, and I think very important for apartment communities. Mr. Hanif would like to know the space required, the cost attached, and the returns on investment of having a community waste management system in place.
I can take that.
Please take it. Yeah.
Yeah. So see, roughly it is for every 1 ton of waste, it's almost like 2.5 to 3 times the space required. So let's say 1 ton of waste per day would mean 2.5 to 3,000 square feet of space requirement. And in terms of what is the infrastructure, it's a very generic question, because there are different types of infrastructure that can be laborious, or they can be occupy lesser space and be more efficient, and may take different electricity costs. So that's a very broad question, but we can definitely give suggestions based on what space, what kind of problems you have. And with respect to return of investment, we want to correct the statement and say this is not a return of investment. This is not any business proposition. This is our commitment to return of environments. We are changing the terminology of apartments to think it's ROE and not ROI. Waste management doesn't give any return of investments. You have to we are setting up the system because we are generating waste, and we need to manage waste in a responsible and accountable fashion.
Okay. So there are 2 questions that is very Sahas oriented. One of the questions is, when do you plan to open your operation in Pune? And the second question is, does Sahas take dry waste and pay for the waste?
I'll just take that quickly, Shobha. So actually Mumbai, Pune, Orissa, Bhubaneswar, we'd be very happy. We have all the abilities to come to your cities, provided you welcome us. And when I say welcome, it would mean that you accept this requirement of paying a service fee, so that we can pay people appropriately, and so that we can be accountable to the waste that we receive. So that would be the criteria for us to move to these other cities. We have tried it, and we'd be happy to hear back from you on that. What was the second question?
The other is, does Sahas take the waste from apartment communities and pay them for that?
We don't pay. You have to pay us. And we say this very strongly, very passionately, and with sometimes a little bit of frustration, because we cannot understand apartments with this kind of mindset.
Okay. All right, so we have addressed all the questions that has been asked, and there I can see just Mr. Ghanshyam with his hand raised. We'll just see if he has anything to say here. Hmm. Mr. Ghanshyam, you can talk now. So, do you have a question that you would like to ask? Okay, so he's Mr. Ghanshyam, you can talk. So, if you have a question to ask, you can ask. Okay, so he's possibly not on call. Mr. Adarsh Jaiswal, do you have any question? I saw your hand raised too. Okay, fine. So we have basically taken in all the questions that was there, and we have taken up all the questions that were in the chat as well. So thank you, Ms. Raghavan. Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez, for this wonderful thing. And all the questions regarding to on-site composting that is coming up, you can actually contact Daily Dump. They provide on-site composting for apartment complexes, and further questions you can you already have our mail IDs that was sent to you via the registration link mail, so you can contact us in the mail ID for the further questions that you have. We'll be ending the webinar here, and I would like to thank Sahas for conducting this absolutely fabulous knowledge session for each one of us. And I believe that this will not only just help individuals to have a better zero waste lifestyle, but also apartment communities to reduce the waste that they send to the landfill. So for the participants, you will be receiving a takeaway mail in the next 2 business days with the webinar recording and the presentation that was showcased here. In case you would like to have any other contact details with regarding Sahas or regarding Adda, you can always mail us, or you can go to the respective websites of both the companies, that is sahaszerowaste.com and adda.io, and we can have your queries answered. So for today, we would like to end the webinar here, and see you guys next time with the next webinar. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks to Apartment Adda, and thanks to all the residential community members who have joined us today.
Thanks. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.